In this video, we're going to take a look at the Parker Jotter. So let's jump straight to the end with my thoughts on this pen. This pen is one of the rare pens for me that I purchased specifically because of something. Because of the Penman Sapphire ink. I was gifted from a family member a number of cartridges to be able to take a look at and to want to, I guess, look at the ink in the same manufacturer pen. I got this one. Now, this is not a pen I would normally go after. It's much thinner than is my preference. With that being said, I do find the experience to be adequate. It's not bad. And it's not standout good. It is simply adequate. But it is incredibly affordable. The biggest downside I find for this pen is the fact that for many people, the proprietary converter. Now, I've mentioned before, I don't mind proprietary converters. I actually prefer them. When I first used this pen, I used to use it with the cartridges of this ink, and I'd used about half of them up before I said, I probably need to do that ink review, so I did it. But in the end, I'm not unhappy that I have this pen. It is a pen that I probably wouldn't have picked it up if I didn't have those cartridges. Now that we know how I feel about the Parker Jotter, let's see how I got to that opinion, starting with the unboxing. The Parker Jotter came in a very simple box like this. The box is very plain and does its job, which is all you can really ask for when it comes to some very inexpensive pens that you can pick up in different places. So I have no real gripe with this box, but no need to hold on to it after this video. With the pen out of the box, we need to get to the nib. And as long as it doesn't take 20 turns to uncap it, I'm generally okay. So how many turns does it take to uncap this pen? The Parker Jotter is a pull cap. I do like that the pen is snap cap. I've found that I don't have a particular preference most of the time, one way or the other, but in a pen that I would just likely be leaving on my desk at work, I kind of prefer it to be a snap cap because if I lend it to someone, I don't need them pulling on threads to try and open a pen. So snap caps have their distinct advantages. This gets us to the nib. This pen has a steel medium nib. The scroll work on the nib in itself is nothing special and nothing to really take note of. It is just a nib, and it writes perfectly fine. Again, I'll say adequately. Now, let's ink this pen up. The Parker Jotter is a proprietary cartridge or converter pen that holds approximately 0.7 milliliters of ink. The ink for today is Parker Penman Sapphire. If you're using a Parker cartridge, then you'll find that it holds plenty of ink. It holds more ink than the converter. Now, I've never had a problem with proprietary converters. So while some people see that type of thing as a disadvantage for a pen, for me, it's an advantage because they've always worked better for me. As a habit, I don't normally post my pens, but some people prefer to post pens, and some pens need to be posted to use comfortably. This pen posts good and secure, nice and deep posting. I find I need to post this one in order to have a length that's comfortable because of the thinness of this pen. And I know that doesn't make all the sense. It's just a tad bit shorter in my hand than I would prefer. So I post it to use it. It posts easily when my hands work. I would use it posted. You can, with smaller hands, easily use it unposted. If you enjoy videos like this, then be sure to hit the subscribe button. Now, the important part, the writing sample. I've said before that I find the writing experience to be adequate, and that's because it doesn't stand out as anything especially good or especially bad. I do find that this pen has a little bit, it's a wetter pen. So sometimes with certain inks, I can experience spread in the writing. Now that will depend on the ink, and that comes down to the whole how you match inks with pens thing. Although to be honest, most of the time I don't. But in this case, I did. And the interesting thing about the Parker ink in the Parker pen is I noticed a general amount of spread while writing. It looked a little bit thicker than a normal medium nib, or how this pen normally writes with some other inks. Now that's not a bad thing as long as you're aware of it going into the writing, that you may get a slightly thicker line than you were expecting. It's also wet, which can affect how it performs on some cheaper papers that a lot of people do worry about. I come back to that feeling in the hand, this pen being much thinner than I'm used to. Now, while it's much thinner than any preference that I have on a pen, I do find that I do not experience any cramping with it. Its very thin section doesn't cause my fingers to slide down, even though it looks a little slippery. I tend to hold the pen right where the section meets the body, and I think because I hold on to it at that moment, I don't experience any kind of slippage. So I'm happy I have it in getting the experience. I don't know that for me, I have a need for this pen after I've used up these cartridges, unless I get a hold of some more cartridges with the Penman Sapphire. Now for something a bit more standard in comparing writing size. I use Mnemosyne Blue to do this. Here's how it compares to a Jowo Extra Fine on the left, a medium in the middle, and a 1.1 stub on the right. Now, I did say that with the Penman Sapphire, it looks in general a little thicker than normal. But here, when we see it with all the same inks, we see that the medium nib typically gives what you would expect for a medium nib. So no real surprises there. And that's a good solid thing. So how does it compare in writing size to other nibs I've used? Looking at the writing of a Parker Jotter with a medium nib, here it is next to a Pelikan P200 with a medium nib, a Visconti Van Gogh with a medium nib, a Pierre Cardin President with a medium, a Pilot E95S with a medium, and a Cross Bailey with a medium nib. So it isn't a review without some size comparisons. Here it is capped, here it is uncapped, and here it is posted. I've mentioned it before, and this is the time to talk size. This is a small pen, which makes it really good for people getting into fountain pens to not all of a sudden be dealing with a very chunky pen. So for that, it's fantastic. For someone who prefers a bit larger or girthier pens, you may not find this pen to be very comfortable to use. At this point, we have a dirty pen that we need to go ahead and clean. Be sure to check out the next pen review when we take a look at the Pelikan P200. If you want to be able to support not just my channel, but any reviewer, then when you make a purchase, be sure to tell that retailer where you heard about it. Thanks for watching.